Okay, streaming. Okay, so brainstorming use cases. Cool. Um uh all right. Give me a second. Yeah, I'm just posting these. I'm just posting these use cases open lesson. So what I wanted to talk about today is the following. And again, it might just be that we jump on the space really if Tetsuo shows up, just because he had a bit of a yeah, he was just unavailable last minute, and so yeah, we'll stay on the look for these. Worst case, we start like um a space. I start a space while I am on a. I think I can do it. Let me see. Spaces. Can I create a space while I'm? Yeah, I think I can create a space. That's cool. Okay. Anyway, so what are we doing? So we're doing open lesson use cases, or we're looking at the solutions page today. Basically, we'll be talking about like different use cases for families, for schools, for careers, for individuals. You know, for things like this, because I think it's worth spending the time, thinking a bit out loud about this stuff, so that we, first of all, might potentially discover more things. Second of all, I think it's just like an interesting way for people to see how I think about open lesson beyond just like, hey, what can we learn today type of thing, right? Um, yeah, give me a second. Uh, 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 yeah, I'm gonna chat. I'm on a GC on a GC and a group chat, and I was just like, just give me a second. I'm trying to multitask at the same time. Uh. Can try one thing. I'm gonna try to. No, I cannot replay. I cannot start that one. But I can go to create your space. Seek only people that I invite. That's interesting. Let me see if I can record the space. I can start. Can we do this? Yeah, looks like I can start a space and a stream at the same time. I'm sorry guys. I'm on a stream. I'm on the stream and I'm on the space at the same time. So I'm gonna see if that plays well. I'm just out of curiosity because it's actually not about way to actually do some multi-channel thing really. Um Anyway, yeah, Islam. Sorry, Islam. You're joining the. I'm just testing. I'm just testing if I can do a stream and at the same time a space. Uh, but you know what I mean. Like I'm here. I'm here in the space and in the stream. Yeah, sure. It's cool. It works well. Um, yeah, no, sorry. I didn't mean to confuse people. Uh, so I'll continue. I'll continue with the stream, and then worst case, I create a space. Hey, man. Okay, cool. So, anyways, what I wanted to be talking about is about this solution stuff, right? So let me. So, um, we open lesson is something where you tend to think of it like um purely as, hey, I can learn these, I can learn whatever I set myself to and whatnot. But to be honest, there's a lot of potential solutions, or there's a lot of potential environments in which open lesson can be applied that are really going to be, I think, the drivers of revenue at the end of the day. Because you have the individual usage, which is basically the way that we've been playing with these. I want to learn these. It's like for your personal learning, skill building, um and whatnot, right? But there's a bunch of contexts in which this makes sense, and one that is very interesting one is the one for schools, because and the reason I'm talking about this is because I've got a couple of people interested in applying this in the school context. And so it's always kind of the question of how does this make sense at all, right? From a school perspective. So uh distracted by patients. So well, it's very easy, right? So openLesson is kind of the way you can use openLesson is also as a complementary tool inside the classroom, right? So you let's say you're talking, let's say you're doing algebra with your class, right? So one way to use openLesson in that context is basically to use these as a tool, as a complementary session to that algebra class, right? So let's say you've done um, you've done a few exercises, you've done a few of the theory blocks in algebra 1, right? And it can be linear equations, it can be something else. You could actually simply, by using the system, give students the task to actually go through these lessons or through these sessions, right? And then you, as a teacher, would actually get um, the overview of like how are the students doing in these sessions, right? So let me give you an example. So for example, you kind of have, yeah, I mean it's basically what you're seeing here, right? So you have your classroom, then you have the students. So from a user perspective, the students have the normal usage that you would see um, in open lesson, right? And essentially they would go through the sessions, and as a teacher you would get access to how they're performing, right? Not only these, you don't have to go through the details of every single student, but you would get a report from the tutor system that tells you what specific help each one of the students needs, right? So this is of course kind of like a bit of a mock-up, right? So that's not really what you're getting in the system now, but it's something that you could set up with the information that it's in the system. So it's impossible sometimes to give every student like individual attention. The homework, again, kind of nowadays only really shows you whether they have an answer, but it doesn't really tell you whether they understood it. And that is another way to kind of use uh, a system that helps you basically ensure that the student is really thinking about the stuff. Um, and also because there's a lot of sometimes students that don't necessarily know how to ask for help, right? So there's like there's different aspects of how the dynamics of a classroom are not optimal, and that a system like this couldn't cover, right? So yeah, and you could even, you could even just go further and build a syllabus, like build an actual, like full course plan, unit plan, um year plan, semester plan. You build it here, multiple sessions, and then you get your students to go through these, and essentially you get, as a tutor, you get that super powered or AI powered sort of overview of how each of the students is performing, because and you've seen the sessions, you get all those reports at the end, and then you would get the same thing here, um, at the student level and at the class level. um, then that's one case, the classroom, right? There's many other cases where this makes sense a lot. An obvious case is for people who are um, preparing for for a specific certification, right? Or they are preparing for an interview, or they are preparing for like things like these. So you can use these as your practice ground for things like um doing a brain dump on stuff, like doing a like let me just like speak through what I've learned about these topics, and sort of what I'm working through to prepare for my certification for AWS and stuff like this. I don't know, this is just an example, right? But this is a very clear use case. I'm the reason I'm going a bit slow with this is because I'm trying to think about all the useful use cases while I speak through these. Well, yeah, yeah. Or reschedule. Yeah, let me just uh, uh, all right, cool. So let's move on. Um, sorry guys, 1 second. Cool. Sorry, I was just chatting. He's not gonna be able to join, but yeah, we'll figure something out. We'll figure something out. Um. All right, cool. So let's move on. So we have um okay, so we talked a bit about schools, we talked a bit about careers. I also want to talk a little bit, and we'll do 5 more minutes because I do want to move on uh, with uh, uh, with the video and the launch and all this kind of stuff. So um, the families is also another important one, right? So, and this is a good example where I am actually going to try to with the goal in mind of respecting my own kids' privacy, to actually use my own kids as like example of how you can use openLesson to do things like um, improving your drawing skills, which correlates with like cognitive performance. To do things like um, to do things like helping your kids with a specific topic in class, to do like not even in class but also homeschooling, right? If you're homeschooling, so it's a great tool for like a homeschooling setup where you work through your material and then you actually get the kids to do like a few open lesson sessions, right? Open lesson sessions are a bit special. Let's it's important to understand that education and learning is not like you're never going to find like the thing that one shots you, right? it's always going to be a matter of layering stuff. Um, and it's a matter of layering stuff, right? And so you like openLesson doesn't aim to be the tool that you need to use to like study or whatever. It's the thing that you use together with your own homeschool setup, to actually get your kids to go through that mental exercise, right? To speak out, to speak aloud. So for homeschooling, that's definitely a huge use case as well, because you just basically adapt this totally to your pace, right? It's totally flexible. You can build your own curriculum. You can actually start just directly one specific lesson, for all types of ages, right? Um, then you have for candidate testing. That's an interesting one, right? Because you can actually use it definitely as an HR tool to then say, look, it's kind of a replacement of your typical whiteboard exercise, but it's kind of like, yeah. So you go through these, you make the user go through a session on their own, right? Because um, you don't have to have a person interviewing the candidate. The candidate can actually go and do these. And basically it's a model, the tutoring model is a model that you as an organization own, or have a contract with, so it kind of knows your stuff. And then essentially you can, you can in that setup pre-prompt the model, and adapt it to your HR process and to the specific requirements of a role that you're hiring for, right? So as a you can use that as a tool for a candidate to actually just go speak out loud, and then you can basically take a look at the performance on your side, right? And then decide whether you want to proceed with this person or not. I mean, those use cases like fit perfectly. They really fit perfectly. um Obviously you have for sales, or sales training, internal training in enterprises and stuff like these. So that's also another very good use case, where also, by the way, the flexibility of the system to work with any AI model, any LLM, comes into play here, right? Because essentially, what happens with, like, let's say sales training, right? You have your sales pitch, you have your sales framework, you have your product, details that you need to kind of learn and to do your job. And so this is a way that you can use to validate that your team knows how to sell the product, but also yourself as a salesperson is a great way to practice before a sales pitch, right? It's a great way to practice before something specific. And the same with support, and even like marketing, like the same with customer support is also a great use case, because you can essentially um do a test. And again, technically speaking, you could even train, or you could even use these to test a you could even use this to test a customer support AI model. You know what I mean? To see how genuine actually it sounds. That is actually a very good idea. Let me just good idea. If you wanna test like a product, if you wanna test, verify that a provider that you're using to do like outsourced customer support, that this kind of stuff would work. That could definitely be. So what I would do is, I mean, that's another use case idea. So you basically do testing voice bots for sales, customer support, etc. Definitely. Cool. And what else? And I think basically, so then you have, yeah, there you have also, the individuals. That's basically what. So these are all the ones that I have now in mind. I don't know. I do think there's many more use cases that openLesson can for. Uh, I don't want to overwhelm this page with too many of them, but I think this is perfect. I think there is one feature that is missing for this to work for this, but this is not going to be in the go live. Don't worry. So there's one thing that is missing here, which is basically these kind of organization level reports, right? Um, but essentially, it's more than this. It's just rather going to be like a custom report of like, hey, you know tell me how this person is doing with this and that, right? And so it's gonna be another model that will actually have more meta knowledge about the platform, and we'll actually have access to a database, and we'll have access to, like, to knowledge like how many sessions someone has done, um and things like this, right? So, and this is going to be more like the organizational model, the org intelligence that's going to be behind this. This is I have to work on some cool visuals or presentations on how this could work, because I think this is definitely one of the biggest um, advantages that the system can have. Yeah. Guys, I'm gonna wrap it up. I'm gonna wrap it up now. I need to go finish up videos and stuff. And for the launch. So I'm gonna keep pushing. And at least I didn't want anyone to feel like because of the last minute cancellation that we didn't have. I wanted to give you something to watch if you wanted to kind of like talk through some of the things. Anyway, cool. Yeah, see you tomorrow. We'll continue with the streams tomorrow, and more updates as planned. We continue with the plan, so we'll do a launch tomorrow, and then we'll do the tokenization stuff, the token stuff on Tuesday, on Monday, sorry, and yeah, we'll keep it up from there. Thank you, guys.